Where do the Jags need the most help position-wise? It'll shock you. It's where they've also spent the most resources. We'll talk about this and more here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for joining me, Tony Wiggins, the host of Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, where it's your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. Just a little note, too, we are free on all platforms wherever you get your podcast. Make sure that you like and subscribe our YouTube page as well and tap in with us there. You don't have to pay for anything either, man. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. All right, we got a lot going on today as we continue to go through the offseason and take a look and take inventory of the roster that is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Also looking to improve the team so that they can make that next step. We just knocking on the door. We have not arrived. New people, what's happening? Glad that you joined us because I know that there's some new Locked On Jaguars podcast listeners because every single day that number seems to go up. We appreciate you. Make sure you like and subscribe. And as I like to say, just come on in and get a sandwich, take your shoes off. You don't have to ask to go in the refrigerator. Once you're here for one day, you are here for good. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at these position groups. And the reason why we're going to do this and break this down today, because oftentimes we have to stop and explain ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially if it comes from a place, most people that ask for clarity, it comes from a place of seriously wanting to know, not just curiosity, not just trying to make a gotcha moment of your boy. Believe it or not, 98% of the things that I hear back from folks about the podcast is all positive. So I wanted to make that clear, even though every now and then, like one day this week, I focused on what I consider the negative. It's positive most of the time. So I wanted to make sure that everyone who asks a question gets it, sort of answered. And not me just say, go listen to the podcast. You heard it before. No, sometimes things aren't clear, and we don't always make them clear, and we try to make them as clear as possible, but obviously there's always going to be further questions. So one of the things that I've been running into is, come on, Wig, we need help in this area, and we need help in that area, and we're good over here, it's fine. So I wanted to break down that part of it today, is because a lot of the areas where folks say that we need help are some of those same areas where the second I mention upgrading or moving on from someone, I get the 35th degree about you can't do that. We like this guy. And I think what happens is because we're all fans and sometimes we're all media people, we don't really see the word I like to use a lot is allocation of funds. And there's this thing called a salary cap, right? And we shouldn't even be having a long drawn out discussion about who we can and can't afford, because the most important part is Trevor Lawrence and he's on a rookie contract. So the problem becomes, well, what's the problem? Well, the problem is the team has used up X amount of money on certain guys, and some of those guys play positions where everyone wants to improve, but they don't want to get rid of those guys. So what it is that means that in order for the team to improve without addition and without making high-priced additions or high draft pick positions at those, saying you can't be redundant in the draft. I don't care how many people want to tell you that. You cannot over and over and over keep reaching for the same position and think you're doing good, because that means that even if you make a better pick than the one at the same position of somebody else. So I'll give you an example. If you draft an edge rusher and he's really good, then that means either Trayvon Walker or Josh Allen is on the bench. period. So you want the pass rush to improve. What you're really saying is you like the guys that are there. You want them to play better. And that does happen in the NFL, and that is a part of the responsibility of the team to continue to get guys to play better. Trayvon Walker, I'm all there saying that he's going to improve and get better. I know he will. Whether or not he'll ever be worth number 1 overall pick, that's arguable. And I'm not going to make that argument because once a person is picked, I don't care if they were number 1 or number 21, as long as they can add something to the ball club. And then some things that players add can't be measured properly if you want, because Trayvon adds a lot of physicality, strength, and speed and overall athleticism to this defense. But people want sacks. And coaches will tell you sacks don't always tell the whole story. But in any event, whether you want to argue about that or not, I will admit that the pass rush needs to be more present if this team is going to ever advance and get beyond the point where they are now. So the team made it to the divisional round. That puts them in the top 4 in the AFC. That's where we're going to leave them for the sake of this argument, because the big step, I think the big steps in an organization comes when you're going from horrible to respectable. And then the Jaguars made that big step this year, okay? Then the next huge step is to go from being respectable to being a contender. I mean, a serious Super Bowl contender. That's the hard part, okay? That's another very big step. There's a whole bunch of steps in between that I missed because the Jags actually skipped over about 3 of them this year to be where they are, because that's because they were actually already kind of there, but you just couldn't tell because Urban was so terrible in 2021. You just couldn't even tell the progress that they were making and what they should have made. They get a better coach in here, and all of a sudden, these guys, Doug Peterson should have won Coach of the Year based on the fact that these guys improved so much. And maybe people didn't give it to him because they realized the coach before him was so terrible that all he did was what a coach is really supposed to do. So it made it look like he was just this great coach, right? I think he is a great coach. But we're going to look at some of these positions in segment 2 or 3, and we're going to talk about the level of commitment financially that has already occurred with these ball clubs. I mean, with these position groups on this ball club. And they're the main positions that everyone wants more. Give me more in this spot. Give me another safety. Give me Brian Branch in the draft. They're already committed to these dudes that they have, and some of them they should be committed to. So I think what we'll do here is we'll go through that. I'm going to tell you, the top 3 are linebacker, defensive line, and offensive line. And the team has committed a bunch of money and a bunch of resources to all 3 of those spots. Absent on the top 3 is DBs, because I don't think the DBs are as terrible as everyone believes they are. However, there is room for one really good starter in the defensive backfield. So we'll go through all of that. We'll get to it all in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. But first, I have to let you know more about today's sponsor. And that is, drum roll please, it is FanDuel. Of course, it's FanDuel. FanDuel is the absolute truth, and I am so happy to inform you guys that FanDuel is now one of our sponsors and a partner here with Locked On Jaguars, because the midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because new customers get what we call a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and easy to use. Now, I know some of y'all were bored during the All-Star game, but you can best believe these games down the stretch are going to count. They are more than halfway, way beyond halfway through the NBA season. So it's time for you to not miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/locked on. That's FanDuel.com/locked on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Riding along here with you on this glorious day. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. Glad you could join us. And there you go. I got my information scrolling along the bottom of the screen if you're watching on YouTube, but it's at Shop Talking Wig or at Locked On Jaguars on Twitter. So let's run through it. I'm going to talk about the DBs real quick. I don't think they're terrible. I don't. I think they need to play better, and they need to find a nickel who will eventually be an outside corner. They could probably use a little bit of youth at safety as well. But Tyson Campbell and Andre Sisco and Rayshon Jenkins, who was a huge surprise, they got to re-up Dewey Wingard as another safety who plays special teams and seems to just find the ball whenever he's in the game. And Darius Williams is the other corner. They finally figured out that he's better outside. I don't think he's great, but the Rams did win a championship with him on the field. But they had some other pieces too that kind of made it easy for teams to try to pick on Darius, and Darius stepped up to the plate. He's small, but he's scrappy, okay? Where on the other side, Tyson Campbell's a big physical corner. Look, they need a nickel. They need a really good nickel. And if you look at Darius Williams' body, you think he's a nickel, but he is not. And so people often make the big mistake. Two things they do with DBs where they make a mistake. One, they think because a corner's a small guy that he's a good nickel, which is not true. And then they think when a corner can't run anymore, he can automatically go to safety. Or when a free safety loses his giddy up a little bit, that he can just transfer and shoot down to the box and play strong safety. That is not true whatsoever. It's just like saying a guy who really can't play quarterback can play linebacker, tight end, or fullback. And you know now that's not true also. Okay, how big he is. All right. So the DBs are not in my top 5. In fact, they're probably not really in my top 4. Although in most mocks, your boy has taken a DB. Why? Because he's been the best player available. And this is what ding, 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 ding. This is what we always talk about. That person has been the best player available, and that person is going to play nickel because they start usually. Everybody talks about a 3-4-4-3. Usually it's a 4-2-5, bro. Or it's usually a 4-2-5 or some variation of that. Now, when they go base 3-4 and they have 2 off-ball linebackers and 2 edge rushers, it is not. So you have to understand that about 35% of the time, whoever's going to be the nickel ain't going to start unless they take a safety off the field. If you do that, then you're taking a guy off the field who you also used a bunch of resources on. So that's something that they have to figure out and manage. I'd like to see them just sign a nickel in. A Steve Nelson type. I don't think Steve Nelson is a free agent, but I'd like to see them sign some sort of veteran nickel, somebody with a or just draft somebody, man. Just get it figured out, man. Just find a way to draft somebody who can play. And I'm gonna let you know right now, my microphone is still tripping. I bought some new headsets. I got the wrong plug on them, so I gotta send them back. If the microphone keeps going in and out, it's because my microphone keeps disconnecting with my computer. So I do apologize. I'll snap that thing back on just as quick as I can, though, because I'm looking right at the screen and I notice as soon as it happens. But I know if it gets on your nerves, it gets on mine, but understand that I need to put this content out, and this kind of equipment I get, you just can't go get it from a corner store. You have to send off for it. So pardon with me and bear with me on that. But getting back to these positions, I keep selecting DBs in the first round because I'm not just selecting to fill the Jaguars roster this season. I think eventually they will upgrade that left cornerback position. And that means Darius Williams will take a pay cut and be a backup, or come 2024, he might not be here. That's why I keep doing that, because the Jaguars have an outside corner who's adequate but not great, but he also can't play the slot, which means they probably overpaid for him a little bit. So let's get to these positions. Linebacker. It's number one on my list. They got to play better. And I'm not talking about Ford Oluwakan. I'm talking about Devin Lloyd. All right. And Chad Mooman when he gets a chance. They must play better. Here's the problem. I just mentioned all three guys. They ain't going nowhere. In fact, Ford Oluwakan led the league in tackles. Devin Lloyd is a first-round pick who they love, his physical ability. And Chad Mooman was picked to eventually, down the road, probably be side by side with Devin Lloyd. That position did not play well. Y'all better pray that they just improve and get better. And I'm mainly talking about the two young guys, because here's the thing. This is where there's a high level of commitment when they only play two linebackers at a time and they have three that play a lot. Shout out to Shaq Quarterman. I'm not including him in this right now, mainly a special teams guy and a depth guy. I'm talking about those three. As a group, they didn't play well. Oluwakan did. As a group, they did not. They can't guard shallow crosses. If anybody runs across their face, it seems like their feet are in quicksand. That's not good, especially when the level of commitment the team has made to that position is about maxed out. You can't go out here and spend a high draft pick on another linebacker when you got all of that stuff committed to them. I mean, you could, but you'll be admitting that something ain't right. Something ain't right about the way the team is structured. So, with that being said and that being considered, man, that's a very, very difficult thing to try to manage. And this is the ebb and the flow and the pull and the yin and the yang. This is what goes on when we have these spirited debates. We have to remember you're limited as to how many people you can have at a position and pay at a position. The next one is the defensive line. And I'm going to tap this one real quick. And I'm going to tap out really fast. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this pause really quick because I really, really want to get in this position. That and the offensive line. We'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right. Letting it be known, man. We're running down this roster. Thank you for making us your first listen. We appreciate you because it's your team every day. We thank all the new listeners. Here's what we're talking about. We already talked about the linebacker position. Defensive line is the next one that's up. Commitment level has been through the roof. And what I mean by that is Foley Fatukazi has a huge contract, right? He didn't play like he was worth it last year, but yet and still, he's still a part of the team. He's going to be here. Costs more to cut him than it does to keep him. At this point, they're going to just hope that he improves. Devon Hamilton right next to him is on a rookie deal for one more season, but he happens to be a very, very good player. And then you have Roy Robertson Harris, who has his hand on the ground in a three-technique position. He's due to make about $10 million this year. Played his best ball in the second half of last season and down the stretch for the Jaguars. So when I ask, where do you want the improvement to come from, folks say Javon Hargrave, and they say Deron Payne, and then I look right back at them and say, are you kidding me? They're already paying one dude about $14 million a year. You think they're going to give Deron Payne $17 million? They might be able to give Hargrave $14 million for a couple of years and justify it by the fact that Devon Hamilton doesn't make that much money. If that's the case, you can go three big across the front and then either bench Roy Robertson Harris or cut him, because that's going to get people to want to cut me when I say you got to cut Roy Robertson Harris, right? They need depth. They need tangible experience, somebody who's going to play well on first, second, or third down, but someone who needs to be rotated. And because they need to be rotated, you don't have to pay them a bunch of money. That's why I'm a proponent of Calais Campbell. That's why I'm a big guy who's out here waving that flag saying, go get him. One, he solidifies the room. Two, he adds experience. Three, he can play all along the defensive line. And hopefully guys play better when he's around. He's just that type of dude, man. And you can count on him late in games because he's always kept himself in super shape. And it doesn't cost, probably won't cost you, it probably cost you half or less than half, maybe a third of what it would cost to get Deron Payne in here for a couple of years. So give him a 2-year deal and make it all fully guaranteed and give him a whole bunch of cash up front and tell him, come on home, Mayor. Be happy, Mayor of Jacksonville. In terms of the edge, I'm going to put that in a different category. Commitment, I did a podcast the other day about the pros of moving on from Josh Allen, and I thought somebody was going to drive a Mack truck in here on the third floor of my building and come through here looking for him, right? So if we don't, let's just assume that they don't. They keep him on a 5th-year option or they extend it. And then you have Trayvon Walker. You still need more. Do you re-sign Arden Key? How much is he going to want? Do you re-sign DeJuan Smoot? Do you finally let go of the pipe dream that is Kayvon Chason, who has about 1 or 2 sacks in 4 years? Everyone says the pass rush needs to improve. You better hope Trayvon gets better. Because here's another situation where if you keep Josh Allen, there ain't a whole bunch of room for you to go out and do anything else except draft a guy in round 1 or 2 that can give you some situational play, and you rotate them and you run it like other teams do, like the Cowboys, where they got 17 pass rushers and all of them find a way to get into the game, like moving Trayvon inside. In order to make that dream happen, the Jaguars have to make sure that they win on first down. That's where Calais Campbell comes into play. I think he helps you win first down, and then you get teams in these long down and distance situations. You can take one of those big fellas out, slide down Trayvon Walker with his hand on the ground, and then put another pass rusher on the field. It's very, very important that y'all understand that I'm all for adding another edge rusher, just like I am all for adding a DB, because at least at those positions you get to rotate 8 people, right? Or 4 people at corner, 4 at safety, 4 at edge, and you'll need them all at some point, whoever's the hot guy. I might even take a peek at guys like Jadeveon Clowney and guys like Yannick Ngakoue and say, hey, I'll just make you a situational pass rusher, and I'm on pay for it. And then you'll have to play every down if somebody gets hurt. But mainly what I'm going to do, man, I just want you to come in here and chase the quarterback. Here's $8 million. Will you do it? Maybe that's the way that you go. I don't know, but they need to improve. And if they're going to improve, it means they might have to get rid of somebody you like in order to add to the unit. Another one I want to touch on, let me hit 2 real quick that I think are fine, but they just need depth. Running back, they need depth. They need depth and a little bit more value and personality. We can get another guy that's just like ETN, but then I think you need another guy who is big and physical and do some goal line stuff for you. And there's some veterans out there. The Williams kid up in Detroit, as well as guys like Samaj P. Ryan, who is a free agent. Running backs, you're going to be able to get them. So there are going to be guys out there that have played a lot of ball that can help you out. They just all got to be good at pass protection because we can't have Trevor rolling around on the ground, okay? Wide receiver, the addition of Calvin Ridley makes this unit really, really solid, right? But if there's something that I think they might need, I wouldn't mind a young gunner. I wouldn't mind a young guy like Jalen Hyatt or somebody like that can really scoot and get down the field and that has a higher catch radius, or his teammate Cedric Tillman. I've done mock drafts where both of them have been there and the Jaguars have gotten them. If you take Jalen Hyatt in round 2, that's because he shouldn't be there, and you're just saying, we just got to take this fast dude and try to see 40 years, give us some spot plays here and there. If somebody gets hurt, be able to step in. But then 4 years down the line, man, you're going to be here running around. So, or just find that guy who's really, really big and tall, who can catch some passes in the red zone. Tight end. And this is the one that I really wanted to touch because I got it at number 4. Even if they keep Evan Ingram, this is a West Coast-based offense. You need 3 or 4 of these guys. 2 of them at least have to be able to block. I prefer one as a blocker, one is dual. He can do everything. The third guy can be a willing block. Okay, you can have a fourth guy that just wants to catch passes. That's fine. But that room has to take on the personality of the playbook and the personality of mismatches, but it can't weaken you at all. So they're going to probably re-sign or try to re-sign Evan Ingram. If they do that, they may give somebody else around the league a one-year prove-it deal for $4 or $5 million, a veteran, a name that you know, or they just might go in the draft and go young and developmental. There's a lot of tight ends, especially for people that run the West Coast offense, man. So that's it, man. That's how we have to look at it. We have to look at the commitment level. And I want you guys to think about it when you're doing your mocks and you're doing your free agency setup. Think about the level of commitment to these positions that the team has already made, and think of it with there's only so much money you can spend in each group. And you got to really get this done while Trevor has a rookie deal, because I don't think he's going to have one for much longer, and the team's going to have to start paying the piper in that direction. Don't be afraid to move people around. If you can get a little bit better just by paying a little bit more or less money, that's just what you have to do. But sometimes when we disagree, this is why, because we have to think about the allocation of funds and where the money is being spent. But if the money is being spent in areas where you need more help, like for instance, the offensive line. The offensive line, I think they need one more really good starter. And then everyone else has to continue to improve. Walker Little, Cam Robinson, Jawan Taylor if they bring it back. And then Brandon Sheriff has to be healthy. And of course, Luke Fortner has to get a little stronger. So that's the one area where, yeah, we can add somebody else. We can add Osiris Torrance to make him our left guard. But everyone else also has to do their part. Guys have to stay healthy. Guys who are younger have to continue to improve. So that's the one area of the team where I think they could use 3 guys in the draft because they have a really good coach. If anything, you want to see them improve their size and their girth a little bit to be a big, bad, mean, nasty unit. But it's also the one where you can develop people, and you have to have the bodies in the building. So you're looking at 9 guys that have to come together and have all of that cohesion and stuff that we're talking about. But that's the one area where we can find a happy medium and say, yeah, we need to improve. The guys that are already there have to improve, but also we can add a superstar. If we can find him, you add him, and you don't cry about it. And we can retain Juwan. And we can keep Walker Little as the third. A good team has Walker Little as their third tackle. So that's why I'm not a proponent of trading Juwan or letting Jawan Taylor walk. Because teams that can win the Super Bowl have guys like Walker Little as their swing. That's the thing that you need to keep in mind. Get rid of Jawan Taylor and Walker Little becomes a starter. Now you have to find another swing tackle. And that is not easy to do. All right, man. Make sure you tune in to Locked On Jaguars here every day as we're leading up to free agency and the draft. We'll have more information for you. You guys do what I say. Always take care of each other. Make sure you come back, like and subscribe to videos and the audio, and we'll see you next time.